What's up, people? My name is Shaggy, the Opinionated Hippie, and today I'm going to rank and review the Mo studio albums. Mo is a jam band out of Buffalo, New York, started in 1989. They've been pretty much going since then. Three core members have been with the band most of the time. Their bass player, Rob Durhak, right? That is how you say his name, Durhak, Derhak. He is the only member that I think has been in every incarnation of the band on bass and vocals. He's also a songwriter. But then for a good majority of that time, Chuck Garvey has been on guitar and also sings and also writes songs. And then Al Schneer on guitar, also writes songs, also sings, but then he also has some keyboards. Not really like a Tony Banks keyboard player or like a George Duke, but he will add atmospherics, little maybe melody lines, just sparingly but incredibly effectively uses the keyboard, uses it well in like some of their jams that they do. Excellent spare use of the keyboard. Phenomenal work. And then they have currently, they have a drummer and a percussionist. I think it's Vinny Amico has been the drummer since he joined, I think sometime in the 90s. Jim Laughlin was a drummer, took some time off, came back, and now he's a full-time percussionist. They had a handful of other drummers early in their career. I think they had another guitar player at one point. They had a saxophone player at one point. But for the most part, you know, for the past several decades, it's been Rob, Chuck, and Al as the main three, Vinny on drums, and Jim on percussion. I get here because they cover San Bernardino quite often. They've done San Bernardino often. Usually I think is an encore. I know they've done an Apostrophe. They did Muffin Man at one point. They've quoted Inca Rhodes and guitar solos. I think probably others, but I know those are definitely out there. So there's definitely a Zappa connection. And their jam bandness, a lot of their songs are kind of straightforward songs. They have a lot of what I would call just pretty good pop, rocky type songs. But when they go off, they generally are going in a proggy direction. A lot of their sort of compositional parts are very Zappa-esque, like an 81, 82 Vi Mars era Zappa-esque, with just those, you know, just with those like melodic lines that are very linear, the like Envelopes, Drowning Witch, or Envelopes is a 70s song, Drowning Witch, Maggio, What's New in Baltimore, those type of vibes. Plus they have a percussionist. So the percussion element definitely has elements of 73, 74, Ed Mann era, that entire late 70s, early 80s, 88. So yeah, a lot of Zappa you can hear in sort of their songwriting and just the way they sound. Their guitar players, Chuck and Al, you have two very separate, distinct guitar players that pretty much, I think, balance out and share the solos. When they're not soloing, the way the songs are composed, or even when they are soloing or when they're jamming, the interplay between the two and just the way they manage to like work around each other, it's almost like a DNA strand, and it's just both the strands are doing incredibly interesting things, but they stay out of each other's way, and the whole is much greater than the parts are phenomenal, but the sum is even better. It took me a while to sort of figure out what their guitar styles are. I think I can pretty easily identify them now. Chuck, to me, has a very traditional, more linear narrative guitar style. Like if you were to map out his notes, it would be like, maybe not a straight line, but it would be something like where you could find a chronology through it. He is the one that's more likely to like drop a quote, an Enter Sandman quote or an Inca Rhodes quote into the middle of a solo, which makes sense because of the way his solos go to like slide into some other melody, kind of makes sense. Schneer, I always think of as more like a dancer. And he's using the entire dance floor, or maybe like a figure skater. But as he's going across the dance floor, he's got a lot of twirls and loops and flips, and like he takes an idea and plays with it, then moves on and plays with another idea, and he's just kind of all over the place. And like there's not much forward progress, it feels like, other than the intensity of the dancing. If I had to combine the two, they would be a tornado. And Al's guitar playing would be the actual tornado itself, like doing a lot of spins. And Chuck Garvey's would be like the sort of linear path that the tornado takes. That's the way I see him. So if you don't know who is who, That I know. That's the way I figure it out. I'm like, oh, is he dancing or is he trying to tell a story? And it helps me. I know the difference. Yeah, yay! After decades of listening to them and seeing them. So yeah, I only really listen to three jam bands: Grateful Dead, who I think of the three has the best songs and the best jams. I listen to Fish. My problem with Fish goes to their songs. A lot of their songs, I'm just not. I've come to like over the years because I've seen them so many times, but they don't really do anything to me. They don't resonate with me much. Mo, I don't think their jams are as epic as either Fish or the Grateful Dead can be, but what they do in their jams, neither one of those bands really do that well. They will take an idea and just like ride that idea for like minutes at a time. Not in like a krautrock, just like just motoric, just like hypnotic, straight, not varying sort of way, but just take a groove and just kind of like fluctuate around with that groove and kind of go up and down and in and out, but stay within the pocket of like a really tight jam. And they do that a lot in their segues. They have songs that are built to just include that. And all of it just works really well. And it is those sort of hypnotic spaces where like you get like a 28-minute recreational chemistry where there are parts in that are just like 5 minutes long, just kind of the two guitarists toying around with an idea, Rob holding the rhythm down with the rhythm section. It's just like some of the most excellent jamming in that sense. And I also think their songs are, for the most part, much better than Fish's. Al, in particular, his songs resonate with me. I like his lyrics. Talks a lot about his family, it seems to be. He writes really good, effective pop songs. Rob's a little more of your like fishy, Zappa-y weirdness songs that might be fun but don't really have a lasting, lingering power. And then Garvey is a little more, not really sure what Garvey's talking about all the time, but I think his songs are intriguing and the music is always really good. So anyways, yeah, but that's it. I'm only doing the albums. I'm not doing the Christmas album. I'm not doing the most recent EP. So I think it's just 10 albums, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 11. And then I think all of these albums are good. I could say if they were to take any of these songs, like from their first album, and just re-record them and release them, I don't think their songwriting has evolved. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. I think they pretty much came out as Mo in the beginning. And while their jams have sort of had added more features and becoming more evolved over the years, their songs are kind of the same. And you could take a lot of the songs on their first album, and I could see them re-recording them and putting them on a recent album, and you would think they were new. So other than like production techniques or however they were recorded, or whether they're using horns or violin or have added like a DJ sitting in, I think the songs are almost interchangeable. So the quality of the albums comes down to how much I like those particular songs, and definitely as we get closer to the top, the albums are put together in a better way, or the collections of songs kind of relate to each other a little better than some of the other albums, where some of them are just a little too eclectic. Like their songs have that eclectic jam band thing where there's some reggae, there's some ska, they're messing around with some blues, there's some backwoods country type things, literally a song called Backwoods, which isn't on any of these albums, but it's on the live albums. So they're dipping their toes in a lot of genres, but I think at their best, they're like kind of a proggy band with some Zappa-esque compositional elements, with just some really good jams, some great guitar players. And yeah, they're a fun band. The only other band I kind of listen to that's a jam band is I do listen to some Widespread Panic. Not a huge Panic head, but I do. I like some of their albums more than I like seeing them live. I don't think they go to the places I want them to go live as much as Fish, the Dead, and Mo do. But I actually like their songs kind of well. But anyways, might do Panic for another day. But anyways, yeah, that's it. That's my introduction to Mo. 10 minutes. Sorry it took so long. Let's get on to number. How many are we doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Let's get on to number 11. Number 11, this is not We Are, their most recent full-length LP from 2020. And probably recency bias here. I haven't listened to these songs as much. I have not seen Mo live in the last couple years, so I haven't had the chance to hear these songs live in a live context and maybe appreciate them in a different way. And And I just think really there's only one song that really, really stands out that's kind of memorable that I like. It's Skitch in Buffalo, which is sort of a memory about growing up in Buffalo type thing, one of the longer numbers on the album. But I just don't, the songs don't grab me the way a lot of the other songs do. LL3, just, I don't know, it's a good opener, but it just doesn't do much for me. Jazz Cigarette kind of sounds like a song a bunch of people with cigarettes hanging out of their mouths would play, one of those kind of upbeat, quirky type jazzy flavor numbers, and you could see people like cigarettes hanging out the side of their mouths as they coolly play this thing, in like a jazz club. And then other songs, Who You Callin' Scared, Dangerous Game, they have their moments. I kind of enjoyed them when I listened to them, but they just don't resonate with me or like linger long in me, and I kind of think they're just kind of forgettable. Again, it sounds like Mo. There's some good guitar playing on here, some good solos, some good percussion on here throughout the whole album, but it's not something that just kind of sticks with me for a really long time. So yeah, in a couple years, if I give this a couple more listens, I may have more thoughts on this. But for right now, I honestly, it's not something I spent that much time with just because I have yet to find that thing that I'm like really excited to revisit. But it's not bad. And I have watched some live shows on like YouTube or listened to some live concerts. A whole bunch of their stuff is out on nugs.net. And in a live context, I like the way they work among other songs. And so maybe that helps lift them up. But on this album, yeah, just kind of an okay album and something that, might get better if I revisit it. But right now, it has to be number 11. This is not We Are. Number 10 is Fat Boy, their debut album. I think they had an EP, a 45-minute version of Meat, the sort of instrumental song that has one word, Meat. I think on the actual cassette release of that, I think it says lyrics by Al Schneer, and the lyrics are Meat. But this was their first release. Recorded in 91, came out in 92. I don't think it was released on CD till 99. It's an interesting little album. It's good. Like at this point, I think the quality is jumping up much better than that last one. There's a lot of really memorable songs, but there's a couple songs on here that they would rework and re-release on later albums. And then one of them they would re-release on a later album. Like Yoda Little is on here, an early version of Yoda Little. They would redo that and put that on another album. And then there was a song on that album that they re-released and put on another album along with Spine of a Dog, which is on this album, which they re-released and put on that album. So yeah, there's a couple songs. They have like 3 songs that they've done and released 2 times. But yeah, it's got some really good songs, but overall, again, it's one of those that's just a little bit all over the place, kind of short. And there are a couple songs I just kind of don't like. Yeah, but still a really good listen. You got Why Oh Why, a Chuck Garvey song. He doesn't write as many songs. He's sort of the Phil Lesh of the group. Maybe 1 per album if you're lucky. Sometimes you get 2 or 3. Hava Nagila into Long Island Girls Rule. Song I just kind of don't like. They drop into Hava Nagilas a lot in their live context, and you can hear there's a couple of those on the live releases, maybe at least one of those. But again, not a big fan of the song. Dr. Grafenberg, which is a song, one of their weird kind of quirky kind of time signature changes. It's about the guy who discovered the G spot, Dr. Grafenberg. Thank you, Dr. Grafenberg. Bam, 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 bam. Kind of a little Zappa-esque course there. As a song, it's one of those that I kind of get tired of, but live, they would usually drop a pretty epic sort of like slow 70s porn funk jam in the middle of it, going along perfectly with the G-spot vibe. Excellent live song, but it is not something I enjoy as much in the studio version. Don't Fuck With Flow, which is one of those really nice, like kind of jazz walking bass line things. And the chorus is like this really heavy, like, don't fuck with flow. It gets kind of heavy, kind of like a big fat furry creature from Mars from Fish, where like you have one section and then you get really heavy and crazy in another section. But this one's more jazzy and then it gets heavy. Really good live number that they could stretch out to some good lengths. The early version of Yoda Little, the early version of Spine of a Dog, which has some different sort of vocal arrangements. I do think the reworking of this is better. Neither one of them needed to be done. I mean, they're a jam band. You're going to evolve your songs live. Put something else on these albums. But they did. Sensory Deprivation Bank, excellent song. I think it's one of Rob Durak's best lyrical songs, best compositions. Love it. And then the sort of throw away the Battle of Benny Hill, which is the battle hymn of the Republic, into the theme to Benny Hill. It's like less than 2 minutes long. So there's some good things on this album, but it just feels a little bit slight and a little bit like a first album from a jam band that probably is producing itself. And, you know, they had a producer, but they did also produce the album. But also, you know, trying to put things together to make an album. So it has that kind of hodgepodge feel about it. But still, it's a good listen. Probably the best thing on here is probably YOI and Century. And no, there's a couple good songs. There's like 3 really good songs. But yeah, that would be number 10, their debut album, Fat Boy. Fat Boy! Number 9 is 2014's No Guts, No Glory. This really bumps up to number 9 past Fat Boy because of one song, which I think is one of their best songs ever. That would be Silver Sun, an Al Schneer song. Starts off with, it's like almost 10 minutes long. Starts off with this really, really long jammy section with a bass part that reminds me of Linda Ronstadt's You're No Good. This doom, 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 boom. That may be the You're No Good bass line, but it's similar to that. But it's just this really just confident but slow but steady, over which there is a solo that goes on for a while. And then when we get to the lyrics are very Beatles psych. Sounds like something that you could find on Yellow Submarine, and then we go off into a jam after that. It sounds like a live song on this studio album. It is incredibly well done. I think it is one of the best things they've done. One of the best things Schneer's done in a list of really excellent songs that Al Schneer has contributed to the band. I think that is by far the highlight of the album. There's some other good stuff. The middle section of the album, I think, is the strongest. You get Silver Sun. You get the song called California, a Rob song that's kind of good. And then you get Little Miss Cup Half Empty, which I'm pretty sure is another song about Al's kid. And it's about his kid just complaining about everything. Yesterday was a blue day. But it's a really good upbeat pop number that Al Schneer does better than anybody else in this band. Other than that, it's just a bunch of really good, solid Mo songs. Annihilation Blues, White Lightning Turpentine, This I Know, Same Old Story. You get that middle run of Silver Sun, California, Little Miss, Blonde Hair and Blue Eyes, Do or Die, The Pines and the Apple Trees, and probably another really strong song, another strong Rob song, the almost 10-minute Billy Goat, which closes out the album. And I think that is one of the things that really helps this album is I'm assuming it's longer than 22 minutes per side. So it's a long album. But, you know, if it were an album, I think the 10-minute Silver Sun would close side A, even though that would be a really long side A. 25 minutes. And then the Billy Goat, 10-minute Billy Goat would close out side B. So it's well constructed. The album is very smooth, segues nicely from song to song. Not literally segues, but the flow of the album is good. And though I do think some of the material is weaker than the stuff on the higher albums, obviously, otherwise it would be higher, the album as a whole hangs together really nicely. And I think that's one of the reasons it's better than Fat Boy or No Guts, No Glory, is it feels like a good album. There were bonus tracks on here, some live songs that they did, but I'm not including bonus tracks in this. I'm just doing the core studio stuff. But anyways, yeah, really good album. Yeah, again, it is number 9, but I think all of their albums are pretty strong and pretty consistent. And if you like one of them, I don't see why you wouldn't like the rest. But yeah, on to number 8. Number 8 is 2012's What Happened to the La-Las. The bulk of the time I was seeing Mo live was the late 90s, all through the 2000s. So far, other than Fat Boy, the 3 albums on this list were released after that, when I was pretty much only seeing Mo when they came to Texas or when they came to like Oklahoma, which was not very often at all. So they kind of fell out of my listening rotation because I wasn't seeing them live, so I wasn't trying to like get inspired. So I think these albums have fallen to the back because of that, but they're still really good albums. And this one, I think of the 3, could move higher if I listened to it more. because it has some fantastic stuff on it. But again, the songs sound like Mo songs. The Bones of Lazarus, which was Lazarus, known as Lazarus Live for so long. Excellent opener, really good Rob song. The second song, Haze, excellent Al song. I think Al sang this a handful of times when they first started playing it live. For this album, Rob sings it. I think Al's voice would work better. I think Al is a quirky, weird kind of voice, but I think his voice would work better with these lyrics, though I don't think Rob's singing is bad. I love this song. Another excellent sort of just kind of Al straightforward pop rocky type song with some pretty engaging lyrics and just some good writing. Al song, I say that. Downward Facing Dog, nice kind of a longer song. Rain Shine, Smoke, another really good hook filled Al song. Like Al is just killing it with these songs, man. Paper Dragon, Chromatic Nightmare, which Jim the percussionist wrote. I don't think it fits in. I almost wish it was the first song on the album. I think these sort of like more proggy instrument percussion driven tracks, there's one on another album, work better as openers than they do in the middle of these albums, because these albums aren't live shows. They don't feel like live shows. And I think when you try to put these elements that might work in a live context, because you also have solos and jams and segues, I don't think it works on the album. So that would be my one complaint. Puebla, another really good Al song. Man, Al is killing it on this album. One Way Traffic and Suck a Lemon, a Chuck Garvey song at the end, which not my favorite song on this album. But anyways, yeah, a pretty strong listen. A really good album, other than Chromatic Nightmare, which I do think kind of interrupts the flow a little bit. Yeah, another just solid album. But again, this is Al Schneer right here. I think all of his contributions just kind of hit it out of the park. Haze, Downward Facing Dog, Smoke. Yeah, he is just killing it right here. But yeah, that's it, man. That would be number, 8? What Happened to the La-Las? Number 7 is 2001's Dither. Fantastic album. Great stuff on here. I think the problem for me is I don't think it's sequenced very well. And it feels like a very unbalanced album. And there are little pockets, or at least a song or two, that just kind of interrupt my enjoyment of it. A lot of this stuff has been live favorites ever since it's come out, even before it came out. And again, we have a little bit of everybody, a lot of Rob songs, a lot of Al songs, no Chuck Garvey songs on here, and a very random cover, at least to record and release, of In a Big Country. That doesn't sound too much like the original song. Fun song to hear. I liked the song when it came out in the 80s. Just an odd little cover. And maybe if it turned on people to Big Country, I'm not sure that needed to happen, because they really only had one good song. But anyways, yeah. So it opens up with Captain America. Really good, fun live song. Not really sure what it's about. I mean, I know what it's about, but not sure if there's a deeper meaning there. That goes into Faker, a really nice, good, slow song that is a really nice jam at the end. Of course, this is only like a 4.5-minute version, so you don't get the full epicness of a live Faker. But it's a nice opening. The Captain America's got a little DJ action in there. Who is the DJ that sits on here? It's DJ Logic. Yeah, DJ Logic sits in on that. I want to say my original DJ for the Poetry Slam, DJ Jester, played with Logic at one point, toured with him. Anyways, just a little aside. So you get some the DJ action is nice. He did a little scratching on there on Captain America. It works well. Into Faker. 2 songs I kind of don't really like that ruin the early flow of the album for me. Understand and The Ghost of Ralph's Mom. I kind of like Understand a little more. Ghost of Ralph's Mom, I just don't like. It just, again, it's like a Casey Jones. It just dun dun bum 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 bum, just doesn't sound like a Mo song. Just sounds sort of an anomaly to what the rest of their songs are. Never been a fan of that song. So Long, excellent Al Schneer song. Another just Al Schneer hitting it out of the ballpark with his songwriting. This is sort of a Pink Floyd Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun slow burn type song with some great percussion, just some great guitar lines. It would get nice and stretched out, kind of a slightly maybe a little darker, sinister vibe to some of it, but it would get stretched out live. This is the one where I actually saw Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun into this at one point. Or maybe it was they did this and then they jammed Set the Controls. I don't know. But I saw those two songs married live in a show once and have greater appreciation for both of them since. But that is a good song. It's 7.5 minutes. They actually put a lot of, this is like they kind of almost deliver the goods on the song completely. Better live, but this is a good performance. Then two of the best short little poppy numbers I think they've ever written. New York City by Rob and Can't Seem to Find by Al. Can't Seem to Find, just one of the best little pop songs. Some really great sort of galloping guitar lines, great lyrics. It's one of those songs I almost think Tom Petty could have possibly done. Instrumentation maybe would have sounded a little different, but it just has just this really good pop sort of Tom Petty vibe in a weird sort of way. Phenomenal song. Water, which I don't really like. Water, I think it's about Chinatown, if I'm not, the movie, if I'm not mistaken. I might be. Not one of my favorite songs, kind of a slow water, not bluesy, but kind of a more bluesy Rob number. Tambourine, which live they could stretch out. It's a fun little quirky number, but again, there's not much to it. Cover of In the Big Country. Rise, another great kind of funky percussive Al Schneer number. And then they close out with Opium, which again, it's one of those songs, it's a Rob song, but was Rob ever addicted to opium? Did he have an opium problem? It doesn't feel as gritty as I need it to be if it's about opium. Like Fish and Mo, if there is a problem, is when they're going for that grit, that dirt. They don't have anything that I think has that sort of Black Peter, that high time, that what Jerry brings to these kind of songs. I don't think Mo does. And Opium has its moments, but it just doesn't resonate as like a song that is like gut-wrenchingly about opium. You know, maybe that's just me, but so that's it. But anyways, a really solid album with some really good stuff, but I think there is some filler throughout it. And it just, the second half especially, from So Long On, just doesn't really flow. And every song seems to be different in a way that doesn't match the first one. So there's not a good continuity to the album. But it's still a good album. Number 7, Dither. Number 6 is Sticks and Stones. This came out in 2008. I think this was a concerted effort on their part to like put out some little more shorter songs. There's like a Rolling Stones vibe to a couple of the songs where you just have these like really nice opening riffs that you could hear like on an Exile on Main Street, you know, maybe a little cleaned up and a little nicer and crisper, but I can see like Richards jumping into these riffs and the Rolling Stones doing these songs, though most of them then go to weird proggy places that the Stones would never go to, but nonetheless they start off on like a Rolling Stones footing. Another album in which I think sequencing hurts the album. There is one song in particular on here, ZOZ, Z Not Z, that is sort of an instrumental proggy type thing with a little really nice jam in the middle. The sort of laid back kind of a jam reminiscent of some of their best segues is in the middle of the song. That jam fits the vibe of the rest of the album, but I don't think the compositional elements go well. I think if they had been on another album, they might sound better, or if it had been the opening track and it had been more of like an overture. Like we got this complicated weirdness, this nice little cool laid back jam, more complicated weirdness, and then we go on to this series of more like 3.5, 4 minute pop songs, right? And so it coming like, I guess what would be the end of side A, it's jarring on a CD. It's jarring when you listen to it in order. I think it hurts the flow of the album. And had maybe this album been resequenced, I would think higher of it. But just some really good songs that I think are good, just straightforward pop songs with some really good keyboard usage, just some good guitar work. Cathedral, Sticks and Stones, Darkness, another excellent Al Schneer song in the Conviction song, another one of those sort of slow building ballads that kind of maybe resonates, that I could see like someone like Jerry singing, has a Jerry ballad feel to it. Zed Not See, Deep This Time, which is the most Stonesy thing on here. All Roads Lead to Home. September, another good Schneer number, if I'm not mistaken. Queen of Everything. And then another song which also kind of doesn't fit, but it would if Zed Not Zed was Z was first, and that is Raise a Glass, which has, when they released the album, I think if you bought the album online, you got like a, I don't have it, I had it somewhere around here. You got like a backstage pass or like a stage pass. And then on the tour for this, when they would always do this as an encore, and if you showed them that pass, you could get up on stage and sing the song with them. And I had that somewhere. I thought I had it around, but I don't know where it is. But yeah, so I got that because I did order this from them online. But anyways, but I like this album. I really like this album. It's one of those I return to quite a bit because I like the songs. Again, there's no real jams on this. The one song that does have a jam hurts the album, oddly enough. So, but yeah, just, it's a weird place to start if you start with Mo, only because you don't really get a sense of like their longer, more epic-y, proggy type solo stuff. But if you like these songs and you do like guitar solos, I don't see why you wouldn't like the other stuff on this list. But yeah, that's number 6, Sticks and Stones. Number 5 is 1998's Tin Can and Car Tires. This is another one that has a bunch of really good songs on it, but I think the sequencing does not work. I don't think it flows very well personally, and there are a couple songs which, while favorites in the Mo live canon, are not my favorites, but then there are things on here that I think are ridiculous. So starts off with Stranger Than Fiction, which is kind of a New Orleans type thing, but then you get some nice slide guitar and you go off. This is a road album. A lot of these songs are about being on the road. So you get Stranger Than Fiction, that, you know, kind of nice upbeat little number. Spaz Medicine, which is one of those really fast kind of Frank Zappa-y, like fast playing numbers with like weird little parts between the verses and almost like a Florentine Pogan on speed, but with a jam band, ska, weird kind of throw everything in the pop mentality. Fun little number. Not one of Schneer's more epic pieces. Nebraska, great pop song. Earworm, gets stuck in my head for days if I listen to it. Head, excellent Al Schneer number. Great opening riff that has this like dun 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 dun, and at one point they always like stop and then they drop back into it. And whenever they drop back into it, they do it a couple times in the song. It's always just like epic. Great lyrics. One of their best live vehicles, because the solo section is one of those like sort of not deep space because there's still percussion driving it, but it's not really a solo where you're soloing over a groove, but it's just like this weird sort of floating space where Chuck is adding like these slide atmospherics and might be some keyboard work in the live, and Al's just kind of doing all these weird, you know, dancing all over the dance floor, but it has this weird sort of like floating vibe about it before it kind of like coalesces and goes back into the song. I mean, I've seen like 15, 20-minute live versions of this song that have just blown me away. But even like the song version itself, I think is good. High and Low, really good Chuck being on the road type, you know, the highs and lows. It's all those things at once. A really good Chuck Garvey kind of straightforward song. And then my biggest problem with this album, Plane Crash. And Plane Crash starts off with like this little classical symphony type thing, and then it has this really dramatic sort of like prog intro, this da-na-na-na, like very dramatic, and then after we have that, we drop into this very drum-led, like on the road type percussion sound, like in drum sound, a very rolling type drum sound, over which we get like, you know, the lyrics and solos and stuff like that, and it just doesn't work in the middle of the album. Again, I think if it had opened up the album and you get this long 9-minute song with the classical opening and like this heavy prog intro, and then you get the rest of the album, it makes more sense. I don't think it makes sense in the middle of the album. And live, they would generally, a lot of times I saw them open the second set with it. And I think as an opener to a set, it works much better than something in the middle of a set. So that kind of ruins the flow for me. We get Let Her Home by Al, a great Al song. Big World, Probably the funkiest song on here. A really great funky intro. The lyrics are funky. You get this awesome Rush meets Zappa, very proggy ending, where the band does this dun 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 dun, plays with time signatures and, shows you how tight they can be. Really just a neat song that kind of sounds like nothing else, but a really fun song. Again and again, another Al song. Ridiculous Chuck Garvey slide guitar song with a lot of slide guitar to open up. This is where the title comes from, Tin Cans and Car Tires. Another really good song, probably a really good Chuck song, one of my favorite Chuck songs. Happy Hour Hero, which I know is a favorite live. It's pretty much about touring and being on the band and always having that sort of happy hour hero in the audience, buy everybody drinks, and just it's about playing clubs and trying to make points at the door, and the hard work of being traveling musicians. Never been one of my favorite songs. It's been popular live. Whenever I see it, people go crazy when they start playing it. It's got a pretty good solo at the end, but not something I've ever liked. And then Queen of the Rodeo, a fun sort of country Al song to close out. But again, some incredible highlights, pretty strong throughout the entire thing, especially the first half. But I think it's just, I don't know, man. I think it's just a little, I don't like the sequencing. It just doesn't flow together. But there is just Nebraska, Head, Letter Home, Big World, even Again and Again are just stupidly good songs. That they would play live and make stupidly better in a live context. But yeah, that's number 5. Tin Cans and Car Tires. Number 4 is No Doy, their 1996 album. I think it was kind of a big hit at the time, or not a big hit, but kind of put them on the jam band map, if I'm not mistaken. It was on this tour when they came to San Antonio. I saw them at a place called the White Rabbit. A friend of mine from Berkeley opened that. I moved to San Antonio, and I've been here about 6 months, and I go to this new club that's opens, and there's a local band playing. I walk in, and it's a dude I know from college that I used to go to Dead shows to. Crashed on his floor once at Cal Expo in Sacramento. Turned out he hadn't paid for the room and was trying to steal it. Cops showed up. We jumped off the balcony into the pool area and had to escape. Slept in my car outside somebody else's hotel that night. But yeah, he opened a club in San Antonio called the White Rabbit. Mo came, did not sell out. And I remember at one point towards the end I think they only played one set. I don't think they played a break. They played close to 2-hour set. I remember at one point close to the end of the show, I was right in the middle, just in my own world. No awareness of who's around me, just enjoying myself. At one point, Rob stops and goes, "Just for the record, there's 13 people still in the crowd." And we're like, yeah! So it was awesome. It's a good show. But anyways, this is a really good album. Again, the only reason I don't like it is there's 2 songs on here that I'm not a big fan of that I know a lot of people are. But other than that, there's a lot of just fantastic stuff. She Sends Me, a really good Al song, a fun, quirky song. Just a great na 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 na, just a great opening riff. 32 Things, one of those really hyper sort of Zappa compositional things with some really fast playing, some funky bass parts. I think the middle jam is with Chuck and Al trading parts, and it just kind of gets faster and faster and more chaotic before they go back in the song. A remake of St. Augustine, which is on an album we haven't yet talked about. Not one of my favorite songs. They turned it into sort of a Samson and Delilah drum heavy thing. Didn't really go that many places once it sort of became the song it would be. Fun song, just not one of my personal favorites. Bring You Down, ridiculously good Al song, sort of his Neil Young. You could see Neil Young covering this song, and solos during this song were ridiculously fantastic. There is a version of Bring You Down on their Warts and All Volume 5. Opens up the show, opens up the album. That solo is one of my all-time favorite things. I am going to review those. Rebubula, a great Rob song from a musical perspective. No idea what the lyrics are about. Don't make any connection to me whatsoever. They're kind of fun to sing, but musically, This thing is ridiculous. It's got a really nice intro. It's got a really neat middle part where there's kind of a jam, and then it kind of dies down to one of those like King Crimson type moments where like you're not really sure what's going to happen, and then they boom drop the beat and go off into like a ridiculous solo. Live, the intro to this and the sort of part before they go into the beat drop solo can get really out there and really spacey and do some really, really fun things. But excellent number in a live context. Spine of a Dog, a remake from the song that was on Fat Boy, which appeared way back when. I think the remake is better. Moth, great Al song. Again, it's just about a moth in the backyard and the moth being caught in the kitchen screen door, and all that kind of stuff. Great solos in this in the live context. Really good version of this on their L 3.1 release with their live album that they released. But yeah, excellent song. And then another one that I'm not a big fan of, but does have some good moments. Buster. I don't know why I don't like this song. I don't not like it, but I don't really love it. It also has some really neat written parts at the end. But it's about a pig. Pigs who can fly. So another Zappa connection. We got Gregory Peccary. We got Buster. We have Gaiuti and Fish. So why pigs keep popping up as topics of songs, I don't know. If anybody knows why pigs are popular, let me know. And then another really good Garvey song in 4, just a slow, like, just a very nice slow song. Got some really kind of builds up to some nice intensity, has some really good solos in a live context. There's a really good live version of this on one of the Warts and All. We're right towards the end of the solo. Chuck drops into the post solo Inca Rose thing, the and he plays that whole thing before they go back into 4. Every time it drops, I'm like, oh, that is so perfect, because it almost feels like I'm like, oh, I forget that I'm listening to Mo and almost think I'm listening to Frank, because it works so incredibly well. But yeah, this is a solid album, man. Like, no complaints. Sound is good. The production is good. Just really, really good. Yeah. Number 4, No Doy. Number 3 is 1994's Head Seed. Yeah, stupidly good album. So many great live songs that would become, in the live context, the songs you want to see when you see them live. I think it pretty much holds together as an album. Yeah, don't really have any problems whatsoever. I just like 2 more better. Opens up with a Kimbo, really good Chuck song that is a really neat solo section. And the way the solo section is laid out is, I think, like, what happens at some point is like Al and Chuck both solo, but like Al will get like 8 bars, and then Chuck gets 8 bars. And then Al gets 4 bars, and Chuck gets 4 bars. And then Al gets 2, and Chuck gets 2. Then Al gets 1, and Chuck gets 1. And then they're literally just trading notes back and forth, like do, 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 do. And it is the interplay, how tight it is, everything about it works well. It's a fun, fun little song. Mexico, a good song about going down to Mexico for the 21st birthday. They usually, in the live context, they throw batches. We don't need no stinking batches in here. I'm referencing The Treasure of Sierra Madre and Blazing Saddles. A good Al song with usually a pretty good solo that ends. Timmy Tucker, excellent Rob song. It's about a horseshoe throwing maniac, guy who likes to throw horseshoes. Just good musically. Again, not really sure what the lyrics, they don't really have a depth to them, but it's a fun song. The remake of the original version of St. Augustine is on here. I think the original is a little better because it's not, I think when it was raw, it was better. And then their Dark Star, their Tweezer, their whatever epic song other bands have, their, I don't know, whatever, Recreational Chemistry, an Al song about recreational chemistry. Everything about this song is magical. Saw them in Dallas once. They did a Living Again, a song that is unreleased still, into, I think it was like a 30-minute recreational chemistry. And just this song, like, they take their time with the intro, and then the lyrics are all about, recreational chemistry. And then going into the jam, there's just like this solo thing where Rob is kind of leading the jam and everything gets really amorphous and floating and they kind of go in all kinds of different directions, but they take their time doing it. And when they're finally done taking their time, Rob just starts to like kind of increase the intensity of the bass and they drop into a solo that goes on for minutes, an Al solo that goes on for minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes. Like this dude can solo can dance around the fretboard for a super long period of time. This is only a 6 minute and 49-second recreational chemistry. I'm pretty sure I've seen recreational chemistries where I'm like, oh, they're going to play recreational chemistry now. You can tell. And they don't hit the first lyrics until 7 minutes later. So we do only get a shortened version of the song, but it is still a really, really good song. Time Again, your little like quirky, like upbeat kind of bluegrassy type thingy that jam bands like to do. Yoda Little, the remake of Yoda Little from Fat Boy, another excellent live song. The lyrics are kind of weird and quirky, like yo, Yoda little lady, that I know. But the interplay between Chuck and Al, the solo section between the verses, which again is another one of those like spacey kind of like feel like a stranger almost, or Cassidy type, just not with the changes in like Cassidy, but just that weird space when bands are just kind of exploring ideas, that middle section in Yoda Little. And then Yoda Little has this really nice sort of written ending, in which the band sort of just gets plateaus and gets more intense as it builds. Just excellent instrumental parts, kind of a silly lyric song, but it all works. Brent Black, a really good Rob song. Threw It All Away, kind of your reggae, threw it all away, hey, hey, kind of like that jam band reggae thing. And then Time Ed, another good proggy song with some really good guitar lines in it. Yeah, just a really strong album. Really good, man, no complaints. Yeah, absolutely love it. I just happen to like 2 albums more, and we're going to get on to those now. Number 2 is 2007's The Conch. Um, when they did Wormwood, the album that is yet to make this list, they decided to like have a little more instrumental interludes and kind of segue the songs so they weren't more standalone songs. They did that on Wormwood, they did that on this album, and I think it works really well and it creates for a more enjoyable, more cohesive listen. The album does run a little long, and the tail end of it, I think the songs get weaker, but pretty much almost the first 11 songs are strong enough to absolutely deliver this all the way to number 2. All over the place energy, but in the best way possible. There's a cohesion to this album. Opens up with Blue Jeans Pizza, a Rob song, really good song. Just some really good, nice bass parts, nice guitar solo. Lost Along the Way, another fantastic Al ballad. Just what it was saying, lost in, but like with a nice solo at the end. Just one of those like Al sort of slow burners that kind of builds in intensity. We drop into a really nice solo towards the end. And it's a very just like uplifting type solo. When you get to it, you're just like, yeah, we're off. We found ourselves. Just feels really, really good. Get a short little interlude called The Conch. That goes into Tailspin, which is this really nice upbeat, almost like a head type number with the opening riff. Then we get Tubing the River Styx into The Pit. The Pit is a really great song with some great keyboard work. Just kind of has a very weird kind of ominous vibe to it. Another One Gone, probably my least favorite song on this album. It kind of works in the midst of The Pit and the song that follows, Chuck Garvey's Wind It Up. But it's just kind of about losing Cobain and losing people, Another One Gone. It's just kind of, again, I don't think Rob does the sort of serious stuff particularly well. Again, I don't know. I just don't like the song that much, but it kind of works where it is. Wind It Up, a great Chuck song with some great instrumentation throughout it, just some great written parts that are there. Into something called Yui Masa, and then Down Boy, and then another absolutely almost near perfect Al song, She. Volume 5, warts and all. There is a 15-minute She on there. The guitar solo in that thing is so ridiculous. This is just a nice 5-minute version of She, but just another great pop song. Pretty sure the She in question is his daughter, if I'm not mistaken. So it's a song about a kid, but it's a good song. Then we got Where Does the Time Go? Summer OI, The Road, which is kind of their epic The Road type song. One of those that kind of would get extended out with a nice solo live. McIntyre Range, The Coal, and then which is a nice short little snippet of sound. And then Brittle End, which is Rob's attempt at a ballad that I don't think really works that well. It's not as good as Al's stuff, but it's a nice closer to what I think is a really, really strong album. Should have been shorter. I think it's like well over an hour. And I think if they had trimmed it down to like a solid 45, this would easily have been number one. But the first 11 songs in particular, all the way up through She, just hits it out of the ballpark. So good that it carries the conch all the way to number 2. And number 1 is 2003's Wormwood. This is the one I would recommend studio album wise. If you want to get into Mo, start here. Yes, I think this is their best, and of course everything won't be as good, but this is good. And if you don't like this, I can't imagine you liking anything else. Maybe you would, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think this is just fantastic. It's sequenced perfectly. It segues from one into the other. I think they did the Frank Zappa thing, and there's like, and King Crimson, where there's like live tracks and studio tracks, and they kind of did a hodgepodge of both of them. So yeah, they took their strengths and they studiofied them. The set list is ridiculous. The songs are ridiculous. Everybody is in top-notch form. Kind of tails off toward the end. Like, again, their weakness is having albums go too long. Like, the album is almost an hour long. Had it been 45 minutes, this would be unbeatable. But as it is still a really good listen. Opens up with Not Coming Down. Really good upbeat Al number. You get a little bit of audience noise in there, or crowd noise, but just starts off with some nice drums, and then you get some slide coming in, just really upbeat, active bass. Excellent opener. That goes into the instrumental Wormwood. Amazing Garvey slide guitar. Just a nice, slow groove. This is what they do better than anybody else, is the slow Wormwood groove. If you like Wormwood, like there are 25-minute versions of Wormwood out there on at nugs.net and live shows. There are segues between songs that reach similar grooves, or kind of that is what they're aiming for, is a groove somewhat like Wormwood. Wormwood, I think, is a perfect example of what they jam like, the jam style they have that they do better than anybody. That goes into Okay Alright, an upbeat K-Rock Nights type number. We get a K-Rock shout out. Though it's got to be K-Rock, right? Because in the West Coast, they all start with W's. So yeah, K-Rock, San Francisco. All right. No, L.A. K-Rock was L.A. K-Rock was San Francisco. K-Fog was San Francisco. Yeah. Rumble Strip, a little like interlude. Gone, another stupidly good Al song. I wrote a slam poem based on this song once. I think Rob kind of co-wrote some of the lyrics, but this feels like Al. It's an excellent Al song. Another little interlude called Organs. Crab Eyes, kind of an upbeat sort of Zappa intro that goes into like a weird little kind of pseudo reggae intersection middle before you get like a solo and like that sort of weird Zappa-esque closer. One of Chuck's best songs. Apparently he only wrote the lyrics and everybody wrote the music. But Bullet, which is just like doo-doo, doo-doo, and then you get these really weird guitar parts that come in. Then everything gets kind of a little like kind of spacey, proggy, weird. But then you go back into this doo-doo, very bass-driven, sparse, kind of just setting the tone for people to layer on these little grooves and stuff. Excellent solos in this. But one of the neatest sounding songs, like Wormwood, one of those songs that kind of shows off, I think, what they do better than anything else, is setting up just this like really solid rhythm bass foundation that they can just like jam over and do things over. Kyle's song, another song that gets some really nice jams live. Another interlude called Bend Sinister, 2.5 minutes of it. Kids, a sort of Caribbean, maybe kind of their version of Scarlet Begonias, just about kids that Al knew when he was little. Again, this would usually have a really nice jam in it live. Kids' Toys, another little interlude thing. Shoot First, a Chuck Garvey song, which is not one of his best, but still it's a pretty good one. And then Edison Laugh Record, just another sort of messing around in the studio type thing to close out. But what really makes this work is you have these songs with these nice little interludes that sort of like connect the songs. And other than it, maybe I think if it had ended maybe at Kids or maybe even at Band Sinister as early as that. If it ended as early as that, it would have been a like 45-minute album. Like I like Kids, but I think it maybe a better album without it. But yeah, just a really, really good album. I think it is by far their best studio album. And if you're not into Mo and you want to check him out to see if it's worth dipping your toes further into this pool, which live kind of is, I think this starting with this album. And if you don't like this album, you don't stand a chance. I can't see how you would like other stuff. But yeah, my number one, Wormwood. That's it for my rankings of the Mo albums. Yeah, let me know if you're a Mo fan. If you're not a Mo fan, let me know if you go check these out. Let me know what you think. Let me know what I missed up on. Let me know what I got wrong. Let me know if you have a better way for me to tell the difference between Chuck and Al when they're playing guitar. All that kind of stuff, people. That's what the comments are for. So thank you. Subscribe, like, share. Go listen to more music, because that is actually the entire point of these videos, is to turn people on to music that I think is fantastic. And I think Mo is pretty fantastic. So thanks for watching, people, and I'll catch you later. Peace.